right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Kansas City Artist Coalition Artist Interview Series. I'm Programs Director Jen Harris, and with me today we have artist Jessica Lambert. Jessica's work explores competition, endurance, and discipline using video performance and sculpture. She's fascinated by athletic bodies that perform incredible acts and the sounds of competition. Based on her experience as an athlete, she uses her body to train and work out until failure. No athlete wants to fail, but it is an absolute within sports and training. She notes that as a retired athlete, her body has lost much of its endurance and conditioning, causing it to fail faster in performance pieces. Playfully constructed sculptures and physically demanding performances works together to bring the body and sport in relation to competition. She questions rules and functionality of sports by manipulating athletic movement and sports equipment. Casting objects out of plaster, stretching basketball nets, slow and sluggish hoops, or tall leaning trophies forces the equipment to work differently with it when filling a space or when used in performance. As an artistic athlete or an athletic artist, sports objects become material and the studio becomes her arena. You can check her out at jessicalambert.com, or here in the corner, we have her Instagram handle. So Jessica, welcome. I'm so glad to be speaking with you today.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So you have an exhibition opening at the beginning of March at the Kansas City Artist Coalition. And I would love to hear all about what you expect from this exhibition. But first I want to know, how long have you been an athlete? Is that a self decision? Did your parents need you to take your energy somewhere else on a Saturday morning? How did that start?
It started from my mom wanting me to be in something active. So whether that was I was going to be in band, I was going to be an athlete, it didn't matter. She wanted me doing some activity. So I tried a couple different sports, wasn't my jam, tried band, also not my jam, until she forced me to go to a volleyball camp right before my 7th grade year. And I had to admit to her that I actually really enjoyed it, which is like the worst thing a child wants to do, is admit to their parent that they were right and that they were going to have fun. So it kind of started off my whole career. I played from 7th grade all the way through my junior season in college. So that was a long time. But I had to eventually choose my artwork and career over my final season of playing volleyball at my undergrad, which was heartbreaking, but it was kind of the best decision for me. And then I actually didn't do anything related to sports in my artwork for years. And I got to grad school, met a peer of mine who played volleyball in a high school. And she was like, we should do a performance piece where we modify a volleyball game in a gallery. And it was like, okay, fine, let's try this out. I did a little bit of performance work before that, but not much. And the next thing I knew, we did what was called the other competitive celebration. And it was about a 15-minute performance piece where we played a volleyball game. Whoever got to 7 points won, in a gallery. And it just like hit like a light bulb. It was suddenly like, oh, I forgot how much I loved sports, and I love moving my body and working out and playing and getting really competitive with my peers. And it just kind of like opened up that world to me again. And I started playing pickup games with a group called Ballers, and there were a whole bunch of grad students. So we played football, soccer, basketball, only one game of volleyball. But it like kind of brought back my love of being active and moving and competing with others. So now I'm making tons of work about sports, using sports equipment, using my own body as a remembrance of when I was in that peak like physical form. I'm definitely not that anymore, but that's kind of the nature of being retired.
I was going to ask you, you have a very specific piece, a performance piece called Dribbling, where you're dribbling a plaster cast ball. And I wondered what kind of conversation you're having with the audience or with your own experience on the basis of dribbling.
So funny enough, I am horrible at basketball. But my parents and my brother played basketball. Like that's what they were good at. And I was this oddball in my family of like, I play volleyball and I'm not good at anything else. Um, but there's something about I think the sound of a dribbling basketball that kind of really draws me to using basketballs, basketball hoops, the net. Um, so I started casting a lot of these objects out of plaster because I'm fascinated with mold making and making other materials look like the actual object itself. So just for fun, I was like learning how to cast these large objects, so basketball, volleyball, all that kind of stuff. And I dropped one once and it had this beautiful sound. And so it just kind of spurred. It was like, oh, I need to like attempt to dribble this thing and see what it does. And I was lucky enough to perform it 5 times at this Outside In festival here in Lubbock, and in front of an audience. And it was so physically taxing. I was sucking wind because the basketball is very heavy, and so having to pick it up and attempting to dribble it is very hard. And it also like it essentially sped up my failure because it is heavy and because that plaster cast volleyball, it still has water in it because it's so big and dense. If it was cast recently to the performance, it's heavier and it's harder to break apart and it has a slightly different sound. So the materiality of the actual basketball is super fascinating to me. Uh, it I don't know. It just kind of brought together some of my earlier works with basketballs and video. I think my dribbling basketballs 1 through 5 is like a little video series that I did, and I would speed up and slow down the video, and so that changed the audio, and then I can make sound compositions within the video work. And so doing the performance was kind of bringing that earlier work back in and making it live, and then having me physically exhausted. A lot of people after I performed were like, that was amazing, are you okay? Because I was so exhausted afterwards.
That's such an intense way to communicate like this, these dynamics in your understanding of sport, of athleticism, even in the nostalgia. If your entire
Hmm.
family has the commonality of basketball, and then you're like, not me, there's
Yeah.
there's definitely kind of there is like a black sheep, odd person out vibe to that makes this make that much more sense in a
Hmm.
translatable way, but also the way you describe speeding up failure. So, I mean, first of all, what did you end up going to college for? You said you had to pick something over your sport. What did you pick?
So I was a BFA with an emphasis in sculpture in
Okay.
undergrad, but I started getting a lot of opportunities at this place called Catapult Creative House, working at a letterpress. So I would be a scholarship worker. I ended up being like a gallery manager there too. So, but the problem was being an athlete, it takes up so much of your time. I wasn't going to get to do that opportunity because I'm gone almost every weekend. So
Right.
it was kind of like I had to make this decision of, do I get to learn and get to create more opportunities for me and something that I see myself doing long term, or one more season of volleyball?
Yeah.
And it like I had to I tormented over this. I talked to people, I cried about it, and I just finally had to make that decision. And it was very difficult because volleyball was so ingrained in my life. um, and I love competing against my peers so much. And that's what's so much fun about volleyball is the competition. And like, I don't know, there's something that I think I didn't realize that I love so much until I started making artwork about sports again. I was like, oh yeah, I remember why I loved this so much. But I had to make that decision of, I got to look out for my career and wanting to go to grad school, and figuring out how to be an artist more full time than just I'm a student athlete. Student athletes, oh my gosh, so much time is taken up by being an athlete.
It absolutely is. I mean, my stepkids do a lot of extracurriculars from sports to theater, and absolutely, there's no time for anything else. Six days a week, generally at minimum, occupied,
Hmm.
and it's tremendous. Well, and I think the thing that is so is really beautiful about what you're carrying forward is your commitment to the the exploration of sport, right? I think people who really commit themselves to playing sports, whether it's recreational or on a more competitive, professional, paid level of some sort, they're not just performing the actions of sport. There's a psychology of sport. There's an emotion of sport. There's all of that participation in teamwork and in building community, whether or not you're truly compatible in this space with other people. So I feel like we're seeing you explore that in your work, though your work seems to stand singular as you athlete, you artist. There is an element of you're inviting people to look at this differently. So
Hmm.
when you moved towards that, toward that performance, you completed that indoor performance of volleyball in a gallery. What did you decide was next? Like, how did you decide, oh, I just love these two things and I'm going to combine them and that's it? Or was there something else that pushed you into making this something that you now have an exhibition about?
Um, I mean, at first it started off of because grad school is really hard, right? It really challenges you as an artist, and your first year in grad school is just kind of rough. And so I was kind of struggling, like, what do I make artwork about? I didn't want to make anything that I made in undergrad. I wanted to challenge myself to learn something new, find new content, but I didn't know what that was until that. And so I was like, maybe I can like use that as a jumping off point for something else. I don't know if I'll stick with it or not. And so I started weaving a really long net. Uh, Ended up being slam dunk. But as I was weaving it, I maybe had 3 or 4 feet done. And then COVID hit and we were told you have to get out of your studios, which was like the biggest eruption in my life at that time. And I was like, how do I make artwork at home? What does this mean? Will we bake it back in 2 weeks? And so I kind of grabbed everything that I could out of my studio. Um, and I ended up weaving that basketball net from the ceiling of my apartment in the living room, because I needed something that was simple to do and I didn't have to think about it too much, because I was in a new place. I was just starting to get comfortable in grad school. Like I could find where the hammer was in the tool room at that point. So it was like, okay, I'm like starting to feel more comfortable. And then they were like, get out. So it
Uh,
became kind of a good place that I could exist in, when I couldn't leave my apartment. And you can only take so many walks to do something during the day, and you can only watch so much TV. So I really started when like the bubble, watching basketball came on. That kind of really opened up my world of, oh, there's a lot that I could do here. From watching sports on TV in the bubble, how they make artificial cheering and like people in the
wasn't
stands
that
for the athletes.
the strangest
It was
evolution of sport?
fascinating. Oh, it was
Right.
so fascinating to me. And so that kind of started my video performance, uh, like, I guess, a journey. And I was lucky enough, I was in a performance class in grad school that semester that we were kicked out in 2020. Um, and so my professor, Dr. Heather Warren Crow, an amazing artist, suddenly had to switch this live performance class, um, to how do you make video performance? What's the difference between video performance and video art and the intersections of the two and theater and like all this kind of stuff. So it was, while it was really hard, it was kind of exactly what I needed. And so that started my dribbling basketball series. I started doing video performance work, where it was just me and the camera, um, kind of reflecting on my time as an athlete. So it while it was hard, it was the perfect timing for me to grow and use something that was so close to me and so important to my life. And I got to appreciate it a little bit more, of being an athlete and being competitive and practicing volleyball by serving against my parents' garage door, from a young age to high school, playing pepper with my dad out in the cul-de-sac, things that I guess I just didn't appreciate at the time until I was really far removed from it. Yeah.
I feel like that's the truth and nature of the journey, right? Like these things upon reflection, you're like, oh my gosh, that was so much commitment to my growth, or
Hmm.
so much commitment to my own experience that someone participated in, and also to for what? For my flourishing. I think that's a really
Hmm.
incredible way to look at this. So when you, as you continue to make this series of work, is there somebody in particular you're hoping to reach with this? Is there a conversation you're hoping people will have about sport and art? Or, I mean, are you doing it for the love of the game,
Probably a little bit of everything. So it's really wonderful to watch people look at my artwork and they're like, "Oh yeah, I played basketball when I was a kid." And so it brings back those memories, and it connects to a lot of people because so many people are fans of sport. And I didn't appreciate it until I got to like really watch people interact with the work. So, for example, my thesis exhibition last year, I made 195 plaster cast pylons. They were painted like pylons. There's going to be some in the gallery in a few weeks. Uh, and so I made a whole bunch of them and I filled the gallery. And people started interacting with them because they would accidentally bump into them and they would fall over and then be like, it's not it's not fabric, and it would be hard, and then you would see the white bottom of the pylon and some of them would break. Actually, like a kind of a mob broke out and people started kicking them over because and it turned into pure chaos. Like we actually had to stop people, because it was insane. So that, while it was really hard to see a lot of my artwork destroyed, a lot of my peers and my faculty at the time, they said there is something special about the work because it becomes so accessible to people, because it is in their life, it is ingrained in their lives so much, people can relate to it and they recognize the objects, and then you get to have that fun playing of, but wait, that's not the right material, why is this a little strange, oh, that's really bad form when you're squatting, uh, it becomes an easy connection with a lot of people. And I didn't realize it until I actually got to really show it to a large group of people. And I think that's why it's so fun to kind of use this kind of equipment in my own body, is that people relate to it. While they may not relate to my specific experience and I don't relate to theirs, the equipment and the competition and the exhaustion and the fun of watching sports is ingrained in everything. So it's kind of, I don't know, it is very accessible. It's kind of fun to see that and to be a part of that and create something that people go, oh yeah, look at that.
What a wild thing to be in the midst of your own show, and on accident, there's a tipping over of something you've created, which in any art exhibit would usually be cause for panic, right? If I hear too
Yeah.
loud of a noise, you're like, what's happened? Uh, but then that, I don't know, there's like a beautiful mutual experience in this herd mentality of, they were like, yeah, let's kick them all over.
Hmm.
Also, that seems very Texas to me for some reason.
Oh,
But also,
I
I mean,
mean,
just
yes.
what an interesting decision that people were like, yeah, destroy it. Like,
Destroy it. It was wild. Oh, I was in pieces when it was happening. Um
well, you kind of
Crying. Oh my
recreated
gosh.
how like a city bus gets burned after somebody wins a basketball game. You know what I
Oh
mean? Like people
God.
just got
Honestly, I'd never
rowdy.
thought of that. Yeah, it was so rowdy. And I knew that like people would probably knock them over, but I didn't think to that extent. And it
Yeah.
and it really kind of humbled me in that you can plan for things to happen, but you cannot plan for things to happen. And that's something that I've kind of learned in my performance classes, that you can kind of think and plan for how audience members are gonna react and interact with you, but there's gonna be things that you can't are gonna be out of your control, that you're not gonna expect. And that was the truth within my exhibition last year.
That's truly incredible. I'm so excited to see what happens at the Kansas City Artists Coalition with your exhibit installed. So we're going to
Oh, me
have your
too.
work on site March 3rd through the 31st, and
Mhm.
you're going to be in town, I know, for a couple of those days. So hopefully folks come out to the gallery to hear you perhaps give some remarks, maybe meet you while you're in town. But thank you for joining us today. I'm so excited for your exhibition, and it's been an honor to talk to you.
It's been wonderful to talk to you. I'm so excited to come and install. I I'm in my studio right now and it's a mess, and so I'm excited to get a lot of the work shown together again.
I'm so curious what's behind you, but that's for another conversation.